Okay, so hello everybody. My name is Gal. I'm a product manager from Defender for Cloud product group. Here with me is Tom. And as mentioned, today we're going to focus about file integrity monitoring, our new version for FIM over Defender for Endpoint. So today we are briefly we're briefly going to talk about first why did we release a new version for FIM, and then we will deep dive into the new experience, what its capabilities, what are the improvements, how can you use it, how can you onboard it, and then we will deep dive into differences between the legacy and the new FIM version. How can you migrate between the legacy and the new version? So without further ado, let's dive in. So first, why did we release new version for FIM? So last or a few years ago, Log Analytics Agent MMA had been set for deprecation, and with this we introduced last year a new simplification strategy with Defender for Servers. Announced that we are going to significantly simplify the onboarding to our product, remove as much external dependencies as we can, and simplify and reduce the prerequisites that are required to use and to onboard to our product, while also enhancing current capabilities. So according to that, we decided we are aiming to provide all our security capabilities over a single agent, which is Defender for Endpoint, MDE, or by cloud native or agentless capabilities. This will allow us to reduce significantly the amount of agents that are required to be deployed at your servers, and this will also reduce the complexity and the operational effort that comes with agent installation. But most important, it will provide you both simplification in this onboarding and a better security coverage. By providing the abilities, all the security capabilities, both by an agent and agentless capabilities or cloud native capabilities, we will be able to take advantages on the strength of both of these platforms and provide you a multi-layered security for protecting servers in the cloud. With MDE, Defender for Endpoint, as a market-leading EDR, we can provide a real-time detection and response, disruptive remediation on real-time with deep visibility to the operation system. And with the cloud-native protection, we can provide an extend coverage and result within hours without agent installation and without performance impact on your workloads. Together, they can act as two and important layer of protection for your servers. So taking this strategy one step forward, we evaluated all our capabilities, security capabilities, which relied on additional agents. One of them is MMA, Log Analytics Agent, and this feature got to receive a redesign. And one of them is FIM, redesign in order to understand how can we provide it better, but over an alternative infrastructure. Focusing on FIM, so file integrity monitoring, it's our security control, which offers real-time monitoring on critical file path, both on Windows and Linux, and also on registries and system file, in a goal to identify any kinds of unplanned alterations that might indicate an attack. By doing this FIM can help you to achieve two main goals. The first one, of course, is security. By constantly monitoring on file changes, we can potentially identify a suspicious attack. For example, by identifying an unauthorized user that tried to reach out to a system file that he shouldn't reach out to, or by detecting log files that have been deleted and can maybe indicate about an attacker that tried to cover his tracks by going through your environments. So FIM has a very important role as a protection layer for sensitive files. But another important role is, of course, compliance. We know that today a lot of compliance standards like PCI DSS, CIS, and NIST are required you to constantly monitor and in real time critical file path and registries. And with this solution, you can do it out of the box. So diving into the new FIM over MDE prerequisite. So the first one, we moved the dependency from Log Analytics Agent to Defender for Endpoint. Now, in order to receive the new FIM solution, you would need to ensure you have Defender for Servers planned to enabled, and of course, MDE integration fully enabled on top of these environments. And the second thing, and we will dive into it later on, you would need to configure a workspace that FIM collected events will be ingested to. So what is included in the FIM experience? So we divided it into three main use cases. First, we have the enablement and onboarding to file integrity monitoring. This is something that is configurable. You need to define which files and paths and registries you want to monitor it on. The second experience that you will use FIM for is to monitor these changes. After we applied the rules that you configured, you can see all the changes over your environments, including a lot of information that will help you to investigate and understand whether the file change is indeed malicious or suspicious. And the last one is ensuring compliance. I will present shortly how can you use regulatory compliance to ensure that with FIM you can be compliant on PCI DSS, for example. Starting with enablement. I will also present it in our portal in a minute, but you can onboard to FIM or via Defender for Servers portal or using an API. Currently, the enablement is on the subscription level, meaning all the machines that are part of this subscription will be monitored by our FIM new solution. The monitored entities, meaning files or the registries, are from a predefined list, and you can choose whether you want us to monitor all the default list or to exclude some of those. You will choose in the configuration and onboarding stage which workspace you want to use FIM in, and which one the collected events will be ingested to. And last but not least, I will discuss it later on, you will receive the 500 megabyte benefit on FIM data events. Moving on to the monitor changes experience. So, as mentioned today, we are perceiving the current core essential capabilities of file integrity monitoring, which is the real-time monitoring. Using Defender for Endpoint, we can ensure a continuous monitoring on the critical file path and registries. This means that with the moment you are configuring your FIM until tops, 1 hour tops, you will be able to see and consume the changes in our portal. You will be able to analyze the changes information both from a subscription and resource view, and you can also tweak it according to your needs. This is going to be a KQL query. The audited changes, as mentioned before, will be stored on a defined workspace, and the information about the change will include extended information than before. First, the information about the file or the registries, which is the file name, the path, its type, the registry key value, and more. About the change, the additional information will be about the type and the change, whether the file or the registry was created, deleted, remained. And lastly, this is a new addition. We are going to provide you a trace about the source of the change, the account details, who made the change, and also the initiating process details. Moving on to the compliance experience, now FIM is also available as part of regulatory compliance. This is an example for PCI DSS, where if you have Defender for Endpoint and File Integrity Monitoring enabled on your environment, you can be marked as compliant with PCI DSS. Great. So what are the improvements that we added to this new experience? I've mentioned it through the last slides, but to stress it even more. First and foremost, now FIM is out-of-the-box supported in regulatory compliance blade within MDC portal. This means that if you have file integrity monitoring enabled, you can easily mark yourself compliant with PCI DSS and later on also in NIST, CIST, and more. This will help you as an organization to prove the compliance by using FIM provided with MDC. The second improvement is the ease of onboarding. Now the only prerequisite is Defender for Endpoint that needs to be installed on your environment. It seamlessly integrates within this agent. So if you already have MDE installed, there is no additional action needed except of the onboarding, which is crucial because you need to configure which files and changes you want us to monitor. But except than that, any other technical aspect is not required. The third one is that we added new information about the change source. We received multiple feedbacks from you as something that we should add and improve in the previous experience, and we managed to do it. Now we can see who is the account who made the change and which is the initiating process, together with additional information that can support an investigation. This is really critical information that can really enhance your investigation when it comes to search if the changes are suspicious or not. Sorry. And the last one, now FIM data types is supported in the 500 megabyte data allowance. The workspace that you choose that the file integrity monitoring events will be stored at will grant this benefit, and also file integrity monitoring events are included now in the 500 megabyte data allowance. I want to briefly, sorry for that. I want to briefly present you now the experience within the portal. Starting with how the onboarding looks like. So I'm here in Defender plans, going to Defender for Servers setting. Right. Here we've added new extension for file integrity monitoring. You can turn it on from here and also edit the configurations. In the configurations, you would need to define two main things. The first one is the workspace. This is the workspace we've mentioned. You need to choose that from which the data will be this is the workspace that will store the data that we are collecting using Defender for Endpoint. And the second thing is this is the built-in list for Windows registries, Windows file, and Linux files. And you can choose from this list which of the files you want us to monitor. Once you're finishing to evaluate it, you can click apply and it will be applied on your subscription. Continue and save as you're familiar with. Going to the file integrity monitoring dashboard. By going to the workload protection, you are inserting to the FIM. This is the same navigation from the previous FIM. So here you can see an aggregated view of all the changes occur in your environment. This is applied to all the subscriptions that are marked and in here. By the resources. So by clicking on a resource, I can see all the changes that occur on the resource, and by clicking on subscription, I can see all the changes for all the resources that are part of this subscription. And when I'm clicking on the resource itself, it's opened the workspace, which the data is stored at, on a new file integrity monitoring table with all the information about the change, as we mentioned before. As a teaser for Tom part, from here you can also reach out to the new migration experience for those of you that use currently on the previous version for FIM over Log Analytics Agent. And just one last thing, we've added now with the GA an experience that provide you also a single pane of glass to all the subscriptions that you are currently have permissions to, or that are presented in Azure portal, and what is FIM status, and whether you have all the prerequisites in order to get FIM. There are two prerequisites: Defender for Servers Plan 2 enabled and MDE enabled. So even if you have you've turned on FIM, enabled FIM, but you don't have MDE, you should ensure that you are installing and enabling MDE to receive all the information and to FIM start applying on your subscription. And this is everything from my end. I'm moving on to you, Tom.
Thank you very much, Guy. Let me just share my screen. And please confirm once you can see it.
Yes, we can.
Great, thank you very much. All right, so let's talk a little bit about the migration between the previous and the new file integrity monitoring solutions, and also about the differences that we are introducing with the new file integrity monitoring based on Microsoft Defender for Endpoint. Let's maybe start with that. So as Guy already said, the prerequisites for the new solution are Defender for Servers Plan 2. That is the same as for the legacy one, but now we only require Microsoft Defender for Endpoint integration to be enabled. So there's no dependency on Log Analytics Agent or Azure Monitor Agent or the security solution on the workspace anymore. The enablement scope, meaning the scope on which we are enabling the capability, used to be a workspace, and all the Log Analytics agents connected to that workspace were the ones that would benefit from file integrity monitoring. Now with the new solution, it's a subscription-wide setting. Now there was a question earlier in the chat already that said, how can I make sure that I'm not enabling file integrity monitoring across all my machines, but only on a subset of them? Well, since it's a subscription-wide setting, it will cover all the virtual machines or all Azure Arc machines in that subscription that have MDE deployed and which are covered by Defender for Servers Plan 2. With that being said, you could potentially downgrade some of the machines to Defender for Servers Plan 1 if you're not interested in file integrity monitoring, and the rest of the Defender for Servers Plan 2 capabilities for some of them. And then only the ones that are left with Defender for Servers Plan 2 coverage will then benefit from the file integrity monitoring experience. The event store is the storage of the place where we are storing the information that a change happened. Back in the days with the legacy file integrity monitoring, that was the workspace on which you enabled FIM. With a new solution, that is the workspace that is defined as part of the file integrity monitoring integration or enablement on the subscription. We will also see that later on in the live demo when we're talking about the migration experience. There is a workspace that you can define as a source and a target workspace, and we will dive into that in a bit. The information that we are storing is now enhanced. It's not only the file and the change information itself, we also added information about the initiating account and the initiating process. So you do not only know that a change happened, but also who initiated the change. So this is a huge benefit from a security perspective. Regarding customization, it was possible in the legacy solution to add custom entities to monitor on. This is something we are currently working on. It is not available yet in the new file integrity monitoring experience. Regarding compliance validation, the legacy file integrity monitoring solution was not part of our regulatory compliance standard, but now the new one is. So we are not only giving customers the insight into changes, but also align it with the regulatory compliance standards that are part of Defender for Cloud. And the data allowance is now also being applied on the new data types that we are storing as part of file integrity monitoring, which was not the case with the legacy solution. Going one step further, regarding parity on monitored entities, as I said, custom rules are not available yet, but that is not all of it, because not all of the monitored entities that existed on the legacy file integrity monitoring are also enabled or available as part of the new file integrity monitoring powered by Defender for Endpoint. Which means that you cannot define your custom rules at the moment, and custom rules that exist cannot be migrated. And some rules have been removed in the default set of rules that are available for Windows machines. And that was basically based on customer feedback, and because they are not mandatory as a as a file or as a registry key that needs to be monitored. We have published a list of all the monitored entities in our documentation, and we can share the link in the chat. But you will also get access to the slide deck later on. So this is a link you can click on, and then you will get the list of all the monitored entities, meaning all the Windows files, all the Linux directories, and also the Windows registries that are part of the Defender for Endpoint-based file integrity monitoring solution. When it comes to migration, then there are some best practices that I also want to dive into. The first is you should review the workspace that is related to your subscription. That means that, as I said, the legacy solution was based on a workspace, and all the agents, the log analytics agents that were connected to the workspace benefited from the file integrity monitoring coverage. Now, in the migration, we need to select the target workspace, and that is the workspace that is related to the subscription, so that we will see that we can check on connected machines, and we can check on existing monitoring rules to make sure we are aware of what we're going to migrate. Then we will select which workspace to extract the configuration from. This is our source workspace, so the workspace that currently holds the FIM rules, and we want to extract them from the workspace and configure them for the subscription. We can export current rules for future use into a JSON file. That means that while today you cannot create custom file paths for monitoring, you can export the current configuration that you have and store it for future use. Then you need to select the target workspace to store the events in. That can be the same workspace as the source workspace, but you can also now define that you maybe change your workspace environment based on your needs. So it does not have to be the same workspace. You just need to have access to the target workspace so that you can select it as a migration target. Then we finalize the migration, and you ensure that all works as expected, meaning you should then test if the machines that are part of the subscription that have been enabled with Defender for Service P2 will also log their changes according to the baselines, according to the rules in the log analytics workspace, just as Gal showed earlier today. So based on that KQL query, you can then see if changes are coming in as expected, and then you can disable file integrity monitoring via log analytics agent. And with that, let's take a closer look at that in a live demo. Sorry. Just need to switch my screen here. Here we go. So Gal showed you the link from the file integrity monitoring experience, and clicking this link will bring you to the prepare your environments to MM8 application blade. You have now two options. You can either click on take action, or you can use the migrate to the new FIM link that we see in the navigation bar. It will basically do exactly the same. And what we see here is we have 3 subscriptions, and it gives us some additional information. We see the total machines that exist in the subscription, meaning the total amount of Azure VMs or Azure Arc enabled servers that are connected to a particular subscription. And in addition to that, we see how many of these machines are currently configured for file integrity monitoring based on Log Analytics Agent. So in the first case, it's 5 total machines, 3 of which are configured for FIM. In the second case, only 20 out of 24, or in this case, 65 out of 266 machines are configured for file integrity monitoring based on the legacy solution. Then we have a list of the related workspaces, meaning these are the workspaces that these machines are connected to. In the third scenario here, we have not only one, but a total amount of 4 workspaces, which you can see if you click on that little information bubble here. It will tell you if Defender for Servers Plan 2 has been enabled or not. And then you can either migrate and upgrade the subscription. Upgrade meaning in case there's not Defender for Servers Plan 2 enabled on the subscription, you could then automatically not only migrate from the workspace, but also upgrade the subscription to Servers Plan 2. And once we click on migrate, we then are seeing, first of all, the review capability of machines. This now is showing us that we have 3 machines that are connected to the workspace and other 3 machines are not connected to the workspace in this case. So that means that once we enable file integrity monitoring, all of these 6 machines will be covered by the rules, not only the 3 that currently are configured for file integrity monitoring. Clicking on next, we see that there is the source workspace already selected, and we have 3 machines that are connected to the workspace. We see the rules for Windows Registry, Windows Files, and Linux Files, and we have a little note that tells us that more than one rule can't be migrated. But we can download the rule setting for future use, and that is where this little link that says Save Workspace Settings as File comes into play. So once we click it, it will download all the settings, all the rules that exist on the workspace in a JSON file. And we can then review all these settings if we want to, or just store it for future use. We can also review all the settings here. We see these are the Windows Registry settings, the Windows File settings that are currently configured, or Linux File settings that are configured on the workspace. And we also directly see if we can or cannot migrate these settings. This is for Linux files that can be migrated, this one. If we go to the Windows Registry, we see that there are some that cannot be migrated, others can be migrated. So it really depends on if or if not these legacy rules are part of the new rule set or not. Clicking on next, we will then again, I'm sorry, I missed one thing. If we scroll back here, we can also select the target workspace. And this can, by default, it is the same workspace as the source workspace, but it can be any other workspace that you have access to. So if you decide that you want to deprecate the workspace completely, you just do not need it anymore, and you maybe have a Sentinel workspace as a central workspace anywhere in your environment, you could then use that workspace as an example for storing the file integrity monitoring results in. And then we see the review and approve page that again tells us which rules are going to be applied. Now this contains the rules that exist on the old workspace, on the legacy solution, the ones that can be migrated, plus the ones that are part of the default set of file integrity monitoring powered by Microsoft Defender for Endpoint. And once we click migrate, we are moving over and we will have the setting then apply to the subscription. And as of then, all the machines that are covered by Defender for Servers Plan 2 and which have Defender for Endpoint coverage will then benefit from the new rule set, and the logs will be written into the Log Analytics workspace. What should we do after migration? So there are actually 2 things here, and this is mainly about avoiding receiving the logs from 2 different FIM solutions. First of all, we should disable file integrity monitoring over Log Analytics Agent or Azure Monitor Agent by removing the change tracking solution or extension from the relevant scope. Relevant scope here means the change tracking solution is enabled on the workspace. This is what we used to use for Log Analytics Agent-based FIM, and the change tracking extension is used for Azure Monitor Agent on the machine itself. So the relevant scope means either workspace or machine, depending on if you're using FIM over Log Analytics Agent or over Azure Monitor Agent. Then if Log Analytics Agent is no longer required for anything else, be aware the Log Analytics Agent itself has been deprecated for most scenarios back in August this year. So if you're not using it for anything else other than file integrity monitoring, then you can remove it from your environments. And there are two things here. If you have been using the auto provisioning capability in Defender for Cloud, you should disable it, because as long as it is enabled, it will always try to redeploy the agent to your machines again. And once you have disabled auto provisioning in Defender for Cloud, you can then remove the agent from your machines. Regarding FAQ, we brought some questions and answers to these with us that we are hearing pretty often in the last couple of weeks. And yeah, that is basically what we have here now. So how can you disable the legacy FIM solution? We have documented a guidance for both Log Analytics Agent and Azure Monitor Agent. In the end, it's always about removing the change tracking solution and then removing Log Analytics Agent, or even Azure Monitor Agent if you're not using it for anything else, but probably you will be using Azure Monitor Agent as the successor of MMA. Do you need a Defender for Endpoint update? So do you need to update your Sense agent that is running on the operating system? And the answer to that is no. As long as you're using Defender for Endpoint integration with Defender for Cloud, and as long as Defender for Servers Plan 2 is enabled for a machine, then you will, or this machine will benefit from file integrity monitoring coverage. And also we have a, we call it Defender for Servers Deployment Status Dashboard. You can find it at aka.ms/df servers dashboard. And this workbook will give you insight into the deployment status of Defender for Endpoint in your environment. So you will see per subscription if Defender for Servers Plan 2 or Plan 1 is enabled, and you will see per machine if Defender for Endpoint has been deployed or not. Is there any performance impact related to the new solution? The answer is no. Because the event collection for file changes that we're doing is not affecting the agent performance on the machine. There is a possible increase of events that are stored in the defined workspace, or the event size themselves, so the size per event that is stored in the workspace, mainly because there is additional information that is that we're enriching the events or the logs with that are stored in the workspace. And one important question is about the permissions that are required to enable FIM, the new FIM, or to migrate to the new solution. And the answer to this is, on the target subscription, you need security admin permissions. On the target workspace, you need to have owner permissions. So it's not enough to be a workspace contributor. You need to be an owner of that workspace in order to be able to use that as a target workspace for file integrity monitoring powered by Defender for Endpoint. Then we also have some resources. Of course, the documentation page for file integrity monitoring. We just released a blog on the new solution, including a step-by-step migration guidance yesterday. So this is also something we're definitely encouraging you to read through, because it has that step-by-step migration guidance, meaning it will guide you through that demo that I just did a few minutes ago. And there's also documentation on how to remove file integrity monitoring as previous versions. And before we start to answer some of your questions, please go to this little survey that we created. The idea here is to collect your feedback on the new file integrity monitoring solution. You can either use the link, or you can just take a photo of that QR code in here. The QR code will go to the forms.office.com survey, and then from there you can just provide your insights, your feedback, wishes, whatever it is. We're definitely looking forward to getting your thoughts on it. And with that, I would like to open it up for Q&A. Thank you.
Great, thanks. The team's been awesome with answering all the questions. We don't have many unanswered. So I'll be asking those, plus a few that was answered that I think would be good to reiterate verbally. So the first one is, Are there any limitations on the number of files that can be monitored since the current solution is set to 500 files max?
No, can you hear me? Okay.
Yes.
Yes.
So there is no limitation in terms of number of files. The limitation is that we currently have the built-in list of path and registries, but within those path and registries, we don't have a limitation of file number or file size.
Great, thanks. The next one is there a way to add new paths?
So currently, we don't have the ability. This is one of our top priorities to add as soon as we can. As soon as we can. It's actually a support of custom configuration for your own path and registries. We are working on it, and we within the survey we will be glad to hear your feedback about it, whether it's required and whether we can address it in an additional solution. So please help us to learn more about your needs using it.
Great. The next one is, I'm hoping I'm getting this right. Is there an estimated amount of daily data for server type or OS kind?
So I don't think we have an estimated or normal data amount that is being ingested to any OS type. It is really related to your server and how many changes occurred on it. I hope I understand correctly, but in terms of the 500 megabyte benefit, if you reach out to 500 megabyte, this is the limit. But in terms of data that will be ingested, not just grant the benefit, we don't have any limitation on it. And we don't have even an estimation on how many will it take. You can try it on and see the data size.
Great. And then here are a few that were answered but might be worth reiterating. So the first one is, how do we onboard non-Azure VMs on-prem to FIM over MDE?
So you can do it using Azure Arc. You will need to deploy Azure Arc on top of the on-premises server and deploy MDE on those, and then just enable FIM as we showed before.
Great. We had one come in. These are for all onboarded servers, correct? Not just Azure?
Yeah, so both Azure and Azure Arc are supported. Yeah, so it includes multi-cloud and on-premises machines that have Arc.
Great. The next one is, can we ingest this into an existing Sentinel workspace instead of a dedicated workspace?
Yeah, yes, so I think I addressed it. You can choose whatever, which workspace you want to store the data of FIM, but you need to ensure you have the right permissions to it. This is the only limitation.
Great. The next one is, how can we know what are the changes happening in the MDE sensor being made to collect the data relevant to FIM? Was it something it was already collecting? If not, what does it do now?
So we have partial parity with what the agent is collecting or was collected before FIM and after FIM. We've added critical paths and registries that were important for us to add as something that monitored by Sense. But as mentioned before, in terms of effect on the performance, it's not affecting in terms of additional consumptions on your machine. So MDE or Sense did collect some of the events before, but we did add additional information and additional paths and files that we wanted to be monitored with Sense for the new experience for FIM.
Great. And then the last one we've got is, since FIM is used by writing data to a workspace, What exactly does real-time monitoring mean in this case? Does this mean the scan runs every X minutes? If so, what is X? If not, how is the compare done?
So we're using Sense or MDE agent as for real-time monitoring. So whenever a change is occurred, it is captured by Sense and sent to the workspace within, I don't know, it's near real time. We can say it near real time. Once the change occurred, it is being captured and immediately being sent to the workspace. So we don't have an interval in here. It's just continuously being monitored, captured, and sent for you to inspection.
Great. That seems to be all the questions we've got. So with that, I'd like to thank you, Gal and Tom, for being our guests and for sharing the great information with our community. Also, thank you to the Q&A team who helped us with answering the questions and providing the resourceful information. To all the listeners still on the line, if you're someone who wishes to aid in the protection of the world from cyber threats and desire to have a say in shaping our strategies, blueprints, and recommendations, then we invite you to become part of our security community. Together, we can make a global impact. So join us at aka.ms/security-community. This is also where you'll be notified about the upcoming webinars, events, and other announcements. Also, for those of you who may have additional questions on the topic we just covered or other product-related questions, please feel free to raise them on our Microsoft Tech Community discussion space at aka.ms/mdc community. Thank you all for being part of our community and for joining us on these webinars.